Hey there, everybody, and welcome to Out Loud with Karyn. Once a month, you'll get to hear from local change makers out loud. I am here only as a resident of our great village, and there is no talk or official business today on this program, only the wonderful work of today's special guest. I would like to say a special thank you to community newspapers. So on today's Out Loud with Karyn, we're chatting with Grace DeWitt. Grace is the director of the new Tropic, an amazing go-to newsletter that is a resource for everything Miami. Their motto, live like you live here. So welcome, Grace. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here, really. Tell us a little bit give us a little bit of information about your background. I want to dive right into New Tropic because it's really become my go-to. I know it's 5 days a week, and I'll let you share all that information, but that's the first thing I open up every single morning. To find out what's going on in Miami.
Well, I feel very grateful that that is a common sentiment. A lot of people, it's the first thing they do. And in fact, I know from experience because for so long, that was the first thing I did every morning because I was a longtime reader. The publication started in 2015 or 16, and it primarily exists, as you said, a newsletter, email newsletter, Monday through Friday. And yeah, for a long time, I was a reader and then a paying member because as a journalism student, I feel very strongly about local journalism. And so when I was in a position to support it, I did. And it was around a year ago, a little over a year ago, where I was looking to make a change from what I had been previously doing professionally. And the email came into my inbox, and in that particular edition of the new Tropic was a call for a new director. And I thought to myself, I thought to myself, I think this is exactly the kind of change I'm looking to make. So
how exciting.
Yeah.
Karma happens that way.
Yeah.
So let's go back even a little bit further because I can't host any shows or have any conversations without talking about the amazing public schools in our community. And like me, you are also a graduate of Miami Palmetto Senior High.
Yes.
What year did you graduate?
2013. And in fact, I am in the process of planning our 10-year reunion right now.
Oh my gosh. All right, I'm not going to say it, but you're getting old. Or I'm getting old, maybe that's what it is. Very cool. So were you a part of journalism with Miami Palmetto Senior High? Were you on the yearbook or part of the newspaper?
I actually was not. I was on student council, which is part of why I have picked up these reunion planning responsibilities. I was our senior class secretary, and I was also on the soccer team. Okay. So that kept me busy.
And these are things I should know since you lived across the street from me.
Yes.
But I didn't follow all of the things going on in your life. So, well, very cool. And then where did you go to college? Because I know you went off to the West Coast.
Yes, I went to the University of Southern California, where I studied journalism and also marketing. But from the 9th grade, which actually at the time I started at Coral Reef Senior High School, but from the 9th grade onwards, I knew that I wanted to go into journalism, and very quickly that became sports journalism specifically. So I ended up at USC studying journalism there and working in the athletic department, doing social media, which at the time was very much still like a nascent, budding field. Obviously, a lot has changed.
Sure, and that kind of launched you into your first piece of your career.
Correct. Yeah. I thought that I was going, my one singular goal was to be the next Erin Andrews, who was a pretty famous sideline reporter. But I found that opportunities in traditional journalism were shrinking and opportunities in social media were growing, and that I had this skill set that not a lot of people had. So my first year out of college was doing social media with the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. And that was a 1-year-long ordeal. Then I moved home because I lost my dad. And in trying to figure out what I would do next, I had people who I had been connected to through USC reach out to me and say, hey, we know you're like between jobs right now. We also know what your skill set is. And are you interested in doing any freelancing? And long story short, that snowballed into my own sports marketing business, which I named after my dad, Douglas Digital. And I am still doing some sports marketing on the side, but I largely sunsetted the business last year when I took over the new Tropic. And as I said, I was looking for a change. I don't have to recount to you all the different ways in which our city and our state and our country and the world has changed over the last couple of years.
Sure.
And I guess I got to a point where I felt more inclined to share information about those changes. I was more motivated to do that than to recount wins and losses and help athletes get a couple thousand more followers on Instagram and so on and so forth.
I have to say, because I want to talk about the newsletter a little bit, but I also have to say, not for nothing, your Instagram is popping, right? You've got, literally, you have, I think, over 31,000 followers.
On the new
Instagram.
Tropic.
Yeah. On the
To
new
be
Tropic.
clear.
You're right. Okay, that's why you made the face. I'm so sorry.
I was like,
That's
oh
right.
yeah, I mean, I'm quite busy around town.
That good, very, very good point. But the new Tropic Instagram, and I think we've got, they've just put it up for us. There it is. 31.6 thousand followers. I mean, that's a big deal. So if folks don't get the newsletter, here's another great way.
Yeah.
You do a lot of unique things with tagging, and what I like best about the newsletter, and you probably obviously have a lot of feedback on what people love and are constantly shifting and making changes, is you capture everything from local government to awesome restaurants. I think you're a little bit of a foodie, if I recall correctly. To awesome restaurants, to things to do that week. And who knew there were so many things to do all across this county? Pretty amazing. So how do you kind of capture who you want to feature? Because I know Mondays you feature an individual.
Yeah, Mondays are our locals to know. I mean, my approach, if you will, to curating the newsletter, because that's really what it is. I mean, of course, occasionally there's some original reporting by me, but I really rely on the excellent work of our local journalists to, pull together the newsletter. So I definitely wanted to be sure to shout them out. But yeah, I mean, I'm reaching a really wide audience. It's kind of surprising to me how diverse the audience is for readers. And so I'm trying to leave every reader with at least one thing that day that resonated with them, right? Like understanding that there are different interests and that people are living all across the county and even beyond the county. So that's one thing that informs my curation. But I guess, I don't know, I look at a lot of what local media is, and so much of it is like still, crime, if it bleeds, it leads, that type of thing. Right. And while there's value in sharing that kind of news, I don't know, I find as a citizen that it doesn't resonate with me as much. So I'm really mindful about finding the stories that that I believe people can engage with, whether that's like, here's a thing happening in your community that you can take action on, or here's a thing happening in your community that will have an impact on your day-to-day life. If I may put a bookmark in that, I think, again, part of what motivated me to take on this role was so much of what happens in national media in DC, it's so far out of reach, and it certainly elicits quite the emotional reaction. Sure. But do we really feel it in our day-to-day? No. But our local government absolutely is the difference between the lot that you drive by every day becoming a park, or it becoming a huge apartment complex, or it becoming, a mixed-use development. So I don't know. You can tell I'm quite passionate.
Yeah, no, and I think to your point is, so I'm almost 60, but Megan, my daughter, who you are friends with, is in her early 30s. We're both reading. Now, she doesn't live here anymore, but we're both reading, and we're both finding and then commenting later in the day, hey, did you see the piece that Grace had in the new Tropic on Biscayne Bay? Or did you see, my picture got tagged in Instagram, because I tag, do my hashtag. I'm not real good at that, but hashtag and, connect to your, the social media page. So all of that people are looking for, right? Did my stuff get picked up today?
Sure.
Did, what's happening later this week in Miami? Who are they featuring today? So I think your appeal is really a wide range of individuals. I've shared the newsletter with a lot of folks, telling them to sign up because there's good information in it. So there we go. All right. Thank you, Alex. So let's talk about some of the folks that you've featured. I think you had a really interesting feature most recently. And I want to say, who was your most recent this past week? Because I thought it was, I'm going to reach out to him.
Sure, yeah. On Monday, I featured somebody named Abel Sanchez.
Abel, I was going to say Alex, but Abel.
Who I had been following his Instagram account for a while. It's at Miami Stadium. And he's a historian of sorts.
Yeah.
I mean, he is doing the research into our archives and surfacing, moments and memories and landmarks that are not here anymore or are on the way out. And I don't know, I love the way that people interact with his work. And I think that he's a good example of, we all have a role to play, right? And
Sure.
it doesn't have to be some grand thing. It can be as simple as hey, I run this Instagram page that has turned a passion project into something that has, developed a community around it.
And I like how you captured his, which intrigued me then to go to his social media.
Sure.
To take a look at what he was doing, how he's trying to preserve little pieces of Miami, because I'm looking right behind you.
I
which
know
you can,
this print is outdated. It
is. They're going to have to put up new wallpaper,
Yeah.
new backdrop, because Miami has grown so much from what we see right behind you. And here he's capturing even the smallest, the smallest of memorabilia, if you will, or photos of
our
memorabilia
history,
of Miami's history. The one that I saw, which I thought was intriguing, was a can of water. I won't say the name because I can't remember, but from a beer company, a brand, and it was a canned water. This was on his social media page. That was distributed during after Hurricane Andrew.
Yeah.
So just really cool. So I'm appreciative of, these are things that I would not connect with probably,
Sure.
even if I spent days and hours, scoring over social media or looking, because it wouldn't ordinarily, Abel wouldn't have fallen maybe within my
Your
wheelhouse.
algorithm.
Maybe
The
my
algorithm wouldn't have sent him your way.
Exactly.
And-
So you brought it to my attention, and I was like, wow, this is super cool. I want to reach out to this guy. Maybe he'll come on this program and talk a little bit about what he's doing.
And I think too, with people that I feature, they're often involved with things that people can then connect
Sure.
with. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation because I don't speak French, but I featured someone who heads up the Allianz Francaise in Miami, which is cultivates the Francophone and Francophile community here. So there you go. If you were someone who spoke French and didn't know about that community, now you've been introduced to Stanislas, and hopefully that's a way that you can more deeply engage. I mean, I think that's the overarching theme, right? You said the motto is live like you live here. Everything that I do with the new Tropic is to try and cultivate greater engagement with the community, readers' engagement with their community, whether that's as simple as, hey, I found out about a cool event through the newsletter and now I'm showing up for it, or it's, hey, I'm being introduced to someone and their organization, and now I'm becoming a part of that, or it's, hey, I'm being informed about some local meeting that I'm going to show up at.
So you guys are a really small staff, right?
Yeah.
How small is small? Is it like 1.5 or?
Yeah, close to that. I mean, there's sister publications in other cities, so I have colleagues in other cities, but for all intents and purposes, the new Tropic is me.
So tell me about how you pick up the stories. I think I hear a little bit, things that interest you, things that you hear about. So what's the amount? Do you get emails from folks? Are people talking about? Because I think there's a wide range of issues that you cover too that are super important to Miami-Dade.
I do get press releases sent to me. I'm on lots of, PR email blast lists, but I really do most of the news gathering myself. And I think part of the reason why I was a good fit for this role is my daily routine before I joined the new Tropic was to make my coffee in the morning and start reading the Miami Herald, start reading the New York Times, I was already consuming news to start my day.
Sure.
And so that is largely how my day starts now in this role is, I have a couple dozen sources that I'm checking every day, basically, to see what they've reported on. And then I'm pulling together the stories that I think will most resonate with the readers.
So I saw that the New York Times recently featured Miami as the next Food City USA. And I know you feature a lot of restaurants. So talk to me a little bit about the food scene, how you get your restaurants. I did read in your profile, and we are like-minded in this.
Okay.
Probably like-minded in a lot of things, but like-minded in this. You talked about an ideal day, and so I read that, and I loved all the things because I would kind of that would be my ideal day too, but you ended it with like a casual dinner with friends, and I think that's one of my favorite things is connecting with friends at the end of the day in a casual way. I'm not a big fan of fancy dinners where everything has to be super proper, right?
Yeah.
But it's Miami, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about some of the restaurants you've been to, or how you choose some of the restaurants in your food scene.
Sure. So it's interesting that's the area in which I hear quite a bit from publicists who are promoting their restaurants. It's interesting though because in like having the perspective that I do, I've recognized that it's very easy for the food world to feel small here because it's very much the same set of restaurants who are garnering a lot of the media attention, which I think is to the detriment. Like there's a lot of great restaurants in Miami that are getting no attention. In fact, one of them is just down the street, Platu or Platu.
Oh yeah.
Has become a favorite. I put this in the newsletter recently. Become a favorite of my family's, and it's just a little neighborhood spot. I was so happy to see that it was ranked the top restaurant in Florida on Yelp. They don't have a budget for PR, right? So had I not happened upon them, I would have, it would have never made it into the newsletter, Gosh, I find, unfortunately, also that a lot of the restaurants are, a lot of style over substance. So I'm really interested in seeking out the substance. Going out to eat's gotten quite expensive. So it's also I want to make my $30 count. So I'm mindful of that.
Where are you eating for $30?
Yeah, right. on the one entree. Recent meals that I've had recently that were really good. I went to the Lion and the Rambler, also here in South Miami. I went to Uchi, which is in Wynwood. Delicious. I sent friends to San Wich on Calle Ocho.
None of these have I been to, so I'm going to have to up my game a little bit.
I love taking friends from out of town to Naomi's Garden,
Okay.
which is
I'm familiar with that.
yeah, which is in
it's-
Liberty City
yeah, it's very
/
cool.
Little Haiti, or on the border.
Right.
Gosh, I don't know.
That's great, though. And
Yeah.
so you're constantly exploring, looking for new places.
I think too. So I live on South Beach, and so there is also an added need to really sniff out like what's truly delicious.
Right.
Because there's, it's very easy to think that South Beach is like just tourist traps. So it's been fun for my friends and I who live in the neighborhood to unearth like the local gems.
Sure. So you talked a little earlier on, you talked a little bit about how journalism has changed. The world has changed, definitely, for sure. And journalism and how people perceive the news has changed. I think newsletters like New Tropic are really kind of reshaping how we get our news. Talk to me a little bit about the changes that you've seen and maybe the changes that are to come, or the changes you think may be coming.
Yeah, I mean, that's been one of the joys of this role, is just, again, as a student of journalism, because you're always still learning, but having been educated formally in journalism, it's been really interesting to compare what I was taught to the realities of now, to the feedback that I get, and understanding the way that my readers are interacting with journalism. There was a complaint for a while about, or there's still complaint about how we've all lost our attention span, right? And how everyone's getting their news off of Twitter, and it's like, what can you really communicate in 180 characters or whatever the limit is at this point. So, I flesh out certainly beyond that, but it's been a really interesting practice to take a full length article and distill it down to, the 5 most essential facts that I want to leave my readers with, because that's the format of the newsletter, right? I like to say it's like the Cliff Notes version of the story. Yeah. Another interesting observation has been, how we all lose when we lose local journalism. And what I mean by that is there'll be an event or a meeting. Let's take a City of Miami commission meeting. I like to watch those. So there are times when there's, from my observation, based on the news, that's the articles that are published after the fact, there is one journalist present. And so I and everyone else is Joey Fletchus with the Herald. Shout out to him. He does great work. But we're all relying on only one person's account of what happened. And it's, it's really interesting because the times that something consequential enough is on the agenda that I'm like, I need to tune into this for myself rather than wait on his reporting to come out. It's really interesting what I perceive and like what most, sits with me versus what ends up being in his reporting, right? And so not that either one of us is doing it better or worse, but just like different the nature of different points. Yeah, like we're just going to take different things away from a certain thing and pass along different information.
And I've seen that over the course of time. I mean, people are going to connect with the things that are most important to them. You may not hear from a wide group of people on a pothole, but you might hear from a larger group of people on an environmental concern, drinking water. I'm just making stuff up at this point, but and that makes sense, right? So because people are going to report out or respond to the things that are most important to them or the things that are connecting to them and their background. I think what you do that is so unique with a New Tropic is I never leave with the perspective that, okay, Grace doesn't like this. I'll say New Tropic right?
Sure,
But
sure.
I know you're putting it together.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Grace doesn't like this, and I disagree with her. I never leave the read. And that is a really unique skill set, right? That you're able to give some perspective, give some points, and leave me wanting more. I need to go read some more about this because I'm not sure how I feel.
Yeah, I try really hard to
Do a
keep
good job.
I try really hard to keep my personal feelings out of it because I see how people in general react to slanted news, and I don't want to perpetuate that, right? It's like I'll lose you on the important stuff if you pick up that we're disagreeing too strongly on something.
Sure.
Certainly sometimes I put my 2 cents in, but I make it very clear that that's what I'm doing.
Sure.
And I also make sure we're talking about like inconsequential things,
Right,
right?
right.
Like I can express like, hey, I'm pretty ticked off that like we are focused on resiliency efforts and like we can't even keep our storm drains clear of
Right,
debris.
right.
Like that's like something where we can have a healthy debate about
Sure.
that.
And to your point, that leaves me looking to get more information. Why aren't we doing that? Or why isn't this happening? Right? Less that I'm going to disagree with you. I just
Sure.
need to learn more.
Sure.
So I think that, again, that's a really unique way of reporting that I have not seen, honestly, anywhere,
Well,
with the
thank
exception
you.
of the new Tropic.
Well,
So,
and I will say that I'm very fortunate, and I'm still very much navigating it. I'm very fortunate to have a lot of liberty to format and write the way I would like, which means I do put a lot of voice into the writing, something that like at a typical, newspaper potentially would not be allowed. But I think that voice is what people connect to, right?
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
I think the information gets across when it feels like you're hearing it from a human versus just reading words off a screen.
Absolutely. Well, you're doing a great job. I love the information, and I see you only skyrocketing from here.
Thank you.
So we've got a couple of minutes left,
Sure.
but talk to folks about how they can get more involved with the new Tropic. I know you have a whole page on the website that talks about how they can get involved, but how can folks learn more about the new Tropic? And let's say someone like me wants to say, hey, I'd love to see something about this.
Yeah, I mean, we have a website and an Instagram page, as we talked
Sure.
about, where you can subscribe. Once you subscribe, it'll arrive in your inbox Monday through Friday. I love when readers write back with whether it's to healthily disagree, because
Right,
sometimes
sure.
I do get constructive criticism, which
That's
makes
good.
me better. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that it's always civil, or positive feedback. All of that to say, go ahead and write in. There also, if I haven't made it clear enough, there is a need for local journalism to be supported. And while
Sure.
our newsletter is free, we also have a membership program called Club New
Okay.
Tropic that people can subscribe to for $80 a year, $8 a month. And that helps me keep doing the work that I'm doing and then some, but also there are member perks. We have great partners around town that give out free tickets to things or free meals at that hot new restaurant or
That's great.
what have you. So that's some of the perks.
So I have not done that yet. But
Okay.
I'm going to make the commitment that I am going to
I
do it. I don't know if I'm
appreciate
going to
that.
take advantage of any of the freebies, but definitely to support you and the work that you're doing.
And the more members that we get, the better chance that like I can do even more in this role, right? Like I would love
Absolutely.
to have in-person meetups and so on and so forth, but I am just one person trying to do the best here. So
Got it. Well, you're doing a really great job.
Thank
so
you.
really appreciate you joining me today. I want to thank the community newspapers. Our next show is going to be on May 10th on Wednesday, 2 p.m. You'll have to stay tuned. We're going to have a very special guest that day as well. If you want more information, check out at the New Tropic on Instagram or the newtropic.com
.com. Yeah.
There you go. And you'll find all of Grace's information there. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks
and we'll
for
look forward
having me.
to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, I'd be happy to come back.
Great. Thank you.